Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today I'm going to show you some close-up colouring. I've been asked by people who see my videos to do some tutorials on colouring. So I'm going to show you how to use watercolour pens, and I'm going to show you how I coloured this beautiful dragon stamp set from Crafty Individuals designed by my friend Dina Rangeley. I used my Arteza watercolour pens, and I've done a video in a really strange angle, as you'll see if you carry on watching, which really shows how I lay down the colour, how I pull the colour using a water brush, how I take the colour away using kitchen towel, etc. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, keep watching, and if you enjoy what you see, please maybe give my video a thumbs up and like my channel and subscribe to future videos. So here we have our stamped image. Now I've stamped this onto some quite heavy cardstock. It's a 250 or 300 GSM watercolor cardstock, and you can see they're the Arteza pens I'm using. Now obviously this is zoomed in really closely, so everything is huge, but you can see they're the pens I'm using. So these are the Arteza brush pens. They have only one end, it's a brush tip, and I use them quite a lot with my watercolor paper and a water pen. So that's how I lay down the colour and pull the colour out. So you can see how I'm just picking the colour palette. So I started off with some blues, kind of got an aquamarine colour, also mauve and purple. There's my water pen. So you can see these are the colours. So I start off by picking out my colours. I kind of lay them down just to make sure I've got a good range that will do what I need. I've also got there some browns and some beiges. This is going to be for the rocks. The dragon is sitting on top of a pile of kind of rocks, so I would be using the browns and the beige for that. So I'm just grabbing all my pens. Obviously this is very close up. Now that's an acrylic block. This is what you typically use for stamping, but you can also use it when you're colouring to lay down some colour, add some water, and then use that to kind of get a base layer. And that's exactly what I'm going to do, I think, on this wing. So I'm just trying to fit that so that it works, so you can see it. This is very zoomed in, and the camera was on a very, very weird angle, as you can imagine. But some people have said it's difficult sometimes to see when you're colouring because your hands are in the way. You can't really see what's going on. There you go, just showing you the two colours. So these are the colours I'm going to use on the wing. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just laying some of that blue down on my acrylic block. You could do this on a plate, you could do it on a glass mat, you can do it on whatever you want. But basically all we do is we lay a little bit of colour down, we take our water pen and we blob usually a piece of water on it and just mix it. This thins that colour so that you can apply it in a single layer. So you can see that I'm just painting like a kid, basically just laying down a base layer of colour across the image. Now the fact that I've laid this down means that all the colour I put on after it will be easier because it goes on easier when it's already got some colour on there. Plus the fact this just gives you a kind of a neutral base layer to work with. So you can see I'm just painting it. I'm doing it quite carefully but not paying too much precision to it. But this is a general colour. The fact as well that these are watercolours, if you do go over the edges, you can always just clean your brush, blob some normal water on it and lift that off with a piece of kitchen towel. Always handy to keep a piece of kitchen towel next to you when you're doing this. I've not sped this video up so you can see it in real time, but obviously there will be little gaps when I'm cleaning brushes and things, so expect that that will be happening. So you can see that's the first wing. So I've got my blue. I'm then moving on to my other wing. So obviously I realised, I started colouring I think before I realised that I was so zoomed in you couldn't even see it. But I'm pretty much doing the same process on the other wing, just laying down a base layer of that very pale light blue just to give it an underneath and basically somewhere else to then work with. It's a gorgeous image, this one. My friend Dina designed this. She's a very talented lady. It's sad that Crafty Individuals are closing, but some of their stamp designs have been bought by another company. I think it's That's Crafty. So they will carry on, hopefully, in some form or the other. Right, there we go. So we've got our base layer of blue. What I'm going to do now is take this sort of turquoisey colour, and what I'm doing is using the colour directly from the brush. So this time, instead of putting it onto the acrylic, I'm actually using it directly. Now I'm just laying down a kind of a blob of colour, not really colouring it in, but just actually laying down some base colour onto the ribs of the wings. So you can see there, I'm only doing it in the area where the ribs are. And then what I'm doing is I'm taking my brush and I'm blending that darker colour into the lighter colour underneath. And you can see as I'm putting more water on there, that colour is getting more vibrant. That's because I'm kind of bringing that colour to life with the water. So what I'm going to do is just do that across the ribs. Then I will wipe my brush on kitchen towel, which is exactly what I did then. Take a little bit more of the pale blue from the block, and then I'm going to blend that colour in so that I end up with the multiple colours. So I end up with the blue from the base layer, I end up with the turquoise from the ribs that we just put down, but then I also end up with a lighter colour in between the two. And this is how you get that depth, this is how you get those layers, this is how you kind of make things look 3D rather than just big blobs of flat one-tone colour. This is how you get the variation, you get the depth, make things look 3D, make things look more realistic. So yeah, just work your way around and just keep going over it. This is why you do need a decent quality paper. This is I think a 300 GSM heavy duty watercolor paper. It's kind of a mixed media pack, but you need something with some heft because you're going to get quite wet, you're going to work quite a lot of layers. If you're doing this with quite thin cardstock, even if it's specialist watercolor cardstock, it's still going to ripple basically, and you'll find that when you finish your project end up looking like a dish rag. So same again on the other wing. Apologies, that's slightly out of focus. There you go, I'll just pull that over. But basically same process, lay some of the turquoise down onto the ribs and then just bring that to life with a little bit of water that kind of brings the colour out, and then blend that in carefully with the pale blue underneath. And you can do that with either the water or you can do it with the blue from the acrylic block. I think I did a little bit of both by the look of things. So just work your way around, keep blending. And if it looks weaker or too dark in one area, you can take some off, just using the brush and then dabbing that colour onto the kitchen towel. If it looks too weak, you can add a bit more colour either directly from the pen itself or from the block, or actually just nick a bit of colour from another piece that's quite dark. This is the good thing about watercolours, they are very, very forgiving. You can't really make mistakes or go wrong with them, which is why I tend to use them most of the time. I do have pro markers, alcohol pens. I use them quite a lot, but not as much as I use the watercolours now. I just find them so much easier to work with. The acrylic pens, if you go over a line, yeah, it's quite difficult to correct that even with a blender. Whereas these, if you go over the edge, literally clean water and a piece of kitchen towel, you can mop it away. So just keep colouring basically. Excuse me. So I'm working on the wings at the moment. Obviously they're two quite large areas, and I want to get some variety in those colours as well. So the wings, I'm also going to use a product, Winsor & Newton create this product called Iridescent Medium, and it's like a glittery a glittery paint really that you can paint on. So I did go over the wings ultimately with that, which gave them a real shine, which you can see in the photo right at the beginning. So now I'm on the body. So I've got now a darker blue. So this is more like a navy blue, and you'll see where I'm using it. I'm using it on the feet, and I'm using it where there are dark bits on the stamp. So you can see I'm not colouring in. I'm not colouring in whole areas. I'm going around shapes, and I'm following the line. So the dark edge on the stamp is a clue. This is where you should lay down your dark colour. So I'm just laying down some dark colour around the edge of my shape, following the lines, being a little bit careful because we're working with quite a bold colour now, but you can see I'm just laying that colour down along the darkest and thickest lines. What I will do is then I will pull that colour out using my water brush in the same way we've just done the wings. So there you go, I've blobbed a whole load of navy down. Now I'm using my water pen and I'm just pulling that colour out. I'm not squeezing my pen, so I'm not applying more water. I'm just using the water that's on the pen and just pulling that colour out and then moving it across the image. So you can see you end up with thinner, lighter colour the further away you get from somewhere. And you can see I just made a mistake there. Look, straight in with the water, piece of kitchen towel, you'd never know. So basically, yeah, you just move it across, and obviously where you pull it, the further you pull it, the thinner the colour gets. And if you're working close to an area we've just blobbed a load of blue down, well, you'll see that then ends up being quite dark and quite strong. You can see there on the face, I didn't have much blue, so I pulled some away from the body. And this is the thing with these, you can add and add and add. You don't, you know, it's not one shot, you don't get one go. If you do it, it's not dark enough, you can add another layer. If you do it and it's too dark, you can use just water to take a layer away. So there you go. So I've got some blue on my brush now, so I'm just going to go back in on the face. There you go. And you can see that's now a darker colour than it was before. So just work your way around the image and follow the lines of the stamp though. The people who design these stamps, they spend a lot of time thinking about the shadows, thinking about the areas that are darker, the areas that are lighter. They are the guide, and you should, in theory, follow their lead. So they've told you which are the areas to highlight, or with shadow, etc. So literally just follow what they've told you to do. So I'm pulling these colour in from the edge. On something like this, where it's the body of a creature, you'll see you end up with a natural shadow either side. The area in the middle, which is the flattest, it becomes a lighter colour, so it ends up looking 3D because you've got shadow around either side. It kind of gives you that depth that you're looking for, basically. So I'm just blotting bits out there. You can see, using my kitchen towel, working my way down the tail, just pushing the colour along. It's the same principle over and over, basically. Using the colour that's there, just laying it down and then dragging it around with the water brush. This is the water brush that came with this set of pens. I've had these pens probably 3 or 4 years. I'm still using the original set. Some of them have dried up, only a few, but most of them are still going strong. And I actually bought a set of 3, I think they were Spectrum Noir water brushes, because I thought, oh, they'll be better quality. But I must admit, I've just carried on using the one that came with the Arteza set. So I've laid some water down here as well on that chest piece. I hadn't really decided what colour I was going to go with that. I was going to go for blues and purples, so I did just put some colour down on those chest plates, and I decided to do something a little bit different with those, so I'll probably go in with a different colour on those, as you'll see in a moment. I think I'll go in with a purple colour. So I'm adding a little bit of a different blue here. I want to get a little bit more colour, so I'm adding some colour directly from the pen. So this is quite a strong colour. It's a different blue, but obviously I'm just going to try and make that a little bit more 3D, and you can see there again, same principle, just dragging that colour out and pulling it across over the top of the colours I've already got there. If you're doing this, you do need to blend with the colours you've already got there, otherwise you do end up with hard water lines, so bear that in mind. But it's not too difficult on a shape like this. So there you go, I'm just pulling those colours out. You can see there, just going over the new blue I've laid down and dragging it over the top of the existing. There you go, pulling it up to the top. I'm drying it on my kitchen towel between areas so that it doesn't get too heavy and it doesn't get too dominant. There you go, pulling those colours across. See, instantly this lifts the body. Instead of it all being one colour, it's now 2 different colours. You've got 2 different blues. You've got a kind of a navy blue, and then you've got a sort of a brighter, more azure kind of blue. And it just gives you quite an interesting effect. All the way down to the tail there. And on the tail I'm just adding a little bit of every colour basically as I'm going along, so that that kind of feather flame looking thing at the end of the tail ends up with lots of different colour and lots of different tone. But the main area you want dark in this case is the kind of hind leg going into the tail, really, because that's where most of the note will be when you look at this image. See, and I just keep working my way around it. If I spot something, kind of wetting it, taking a bit of colour off with the kitchen towel, etc, etc. Just keep looking at the image and looking at how it's looking. Now, at this point, I think this is when I probably grab my purple. I think that's the purple. Yeah, Real Brush Pens. I think that's the violet. Right, yeah, here we go. So now this is colouring the breastplates. So what you'll see I do on this one is slightly different. So I'm laying colour down at the top of each of those sections. And then what I'm going to do, and also just around the face there a little bit as well, purple on the face. I then kind of drag the colour out, but I don't drag it out all the way, because I want to leave it sort of with some dots. So you'll see there, I'm using a different technique. Instead of painting, I'm just dabbing. So I'm dabbing away with the end of my brush. It's smoothing out the colour, but it's not smoothing out uniformly across the shape I'm working in. So I'm just dabbing away, leaving that colour kind of where it is, but just smoothing it out. No long strokes here, just dabs. And that's one of the things, that's one of the reasons why I've done this video so close in so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm smoothing that colour out, I'm evening it out with the colour that's there already, but I'm leaving it so it's noticeably, that purple is at the top of the kind of breastplates, so that you end up with that effect. There you go, and then I'm just adding a little bit of that around just for sort of continuity. There you go, I'm taking that colour off, cleaning up again, kitchen towel coming in, there you go. So anytime you make a mistake, water, kitchen towel, move on. There we go, we're taking some colour off now, so I've obviously decided, I've looked at that and thought, that's probably a little bit too dark. So I'm just kind of making my way through it and cleaning stuff up as I'm going. There we go, and now I'm adding that same purple tone onto the wings because we want all the same colours. So we're just adding now a little bit of purple as a sort of shadow in on the ribs, so you can see. Blending that out again so it matches and sort of fades into the other colours. This has almost got like a Rupert type quality to it, Rupert the Bear. Don't know what made me think of that, but just that style of drawing with the dashes and the dots. And then same thing here. So again, purple on the rib, just a little bit, because we know when we activate it with water it's going to become stronger. Taking a little bit of care around the edge there. There we go, and then I'll pull them out again using the water. There you go, so I go immediately over the colour I've just added, but then I blend it into the colour that's there. And you're ending up with quite a nice colour. Now that wing, if you remember, has got probably now 3 or 4 different colours on it, and it really looks it as well. When you finish, you can really see all the different tones, and it creates a really, really lovely effect, this layering and adding sort of colour after colour rather than just one flat panel of colour. And it's got a kind of a mythical, sort of magical effect to it. And then I'm just adding a little bit of that purple into the body, just for consistency. Right, now where are we now? So I think now, yeah, we're back on, I think, the purple again, just adding a little bit more. So you can see I'm adding it to the little feathers on the top, just to give them a little bit of coordinating colour as well. But again, using the sort of dotty technique, dotty, dabby, whatever you want to call it, not great big long brush strokes, so that you end up with some sort of blobs of colour really. Okay, that's cleaning off the water brush, I think. Now, I think we're probably moving on to the base now. So remember the 2 browns I picked? Yeah, exactly. So first of all, I've gone in here with the light colour. So this is a kind of a mid-brown, sort of like a browny greeny colour. I can't exactly remember which colour it was, but I decided to just leave this fairly neutral. I wasn't actually sure if it's a pile of gold or whether it's a mountain. I decided it's the side of a mountain, so I just went for sort of brown and like a bronzy goldy colour. So I'm just going over, obviously we've got all the lines that have been drawn, which we can accent and highlight. So the first thing I'm doing is going in with this goldy colour, so just laying down some of that colour, and then I'm going to just pull that across all the different areas so that we've got a base layer of that colour, and then I'll use the dark brown to then kind of highlight those areas that have been drawn on the image. So you can see that I'm just filling that in basically, so using the colour, leaving the colour prominent in some areas, in others just pulling it out and kind of flattening it across all of the image, and then just blending that in really, so just giving myself a sort of a base layer. So, and because of the nature of this stamp, you can see it hasn't got like an exact edge. I'm kind of just pulling those colours off and just leaving them ragged so that it becomes an image with no border. And you can see I've done it there as well, where there isn't even anything actually drawn on the stamp. So I'm just pulling that colour about, pulling a little bit down there below the end of the tail as well, just to give myself a base layer. So once we've done that, and even like that, you can see it ends up with variations. You've got some areas where the colour is the colour, other areas where it's been flattened out because it's been pulled with the water. So you can see you end up with a kind of an effect straight away. If you then add on top of that then a different colour, then obviously that even brings that more to life. Right, here we go. So now we're going in with the brown. And you'll notice here, I'm probably going to follow some of the lines because, as I said, the lines are there for a purpose. So we should work around them really. So I'm adding in this darker colour, but pretty much following the lines that have been drawn on the stamped image. So again, bold colour, be careful. But just follow the lines, follow the stamp, follow the guide. Dina has obviously designed this in a certain way, and it's meant to be coloured and meant to be followed. So at the moment it looks awful because you've got that really dark colour against that kind of neutral background, but once we bleed that colour out a little bit and water it down and blend that in with the colour that we'd already laid down, that'll smooth it out. There we go, and now melding that in. So in some areas I'm kind of blending it in detail, in other areas I'm leaving the brown slightly more prominent, just so we get a variation. You don't want it all to look exactly the same. It shouldn't be uniform, it's just the ground. So leave some areas different than others. It just creates an interesting effect, makes it more realistic. There we go, look how much better that looks straight away. That dark brown just really finishes it off. And again, dotting, dabbing, not really painting, kind of pulling and working with the colour. We go around the tail. And you can see you end up overall, because the two different colours have kind of merged and melded into one, you end up with almost 2 or 3 different tones really. The dark brown where you've laid it and not worked it much, other areas where it's quite pale where you've kind of dragged the colour out and it was the only really the goldy light brown colour underneath. There we go, so that's our hill done. I think at this point I'm probably looking at it and doing my final sort of look at it and think, what do I need to add? Where do I want more colour? Where do I want more variety? And I think I was looking particularly at the chest plates on the dragon because they are quite noticeable and they're quite dominant. So I think at that point I decided I need to go back in with a different colour just to make them a little bit more vibrant and make them a little bit different. Right, so I'm repositioning. And I think this is the point when I go in with, oh no, this is the point when I'm actually doing the sky. So yeah, I decided it was a little bit white behind the dragon, so I thought I might need to add some kind of a colour. So I just went in here with a kind of a pale green, kind of a neutrally colour. Not super noticeable, but enough that it's not just the sort of whitey cream colour of the paper. And I just used my water brush to do this. So I put a little bit of colour onto my acrylic pad, and then I just literally pulled that colour around with the water brush. You've got to be quite careful at this point because if you go over an area that you've painted already in a blue or a purple, it will pull that colour into this pale colour in the background, so you do need to be a little bit careful. Also make sure the areas you're working with are completely dry. So I wouldn't have done this right next to the brown straight away because obviously I'd only just painted that. There we go, and that just sort of, it just neutralises that background a little bit. It was a little bit pale cream, a little bit white, and a little bit sort of glaring. So that's actually nice. It sort of dulls it down a little bit and gives the dragon a little bit more background. And then I just dotted and dabbed a little bit of pale blue on there, and I'm going to just work that in with the water brush. go, and I'm adding just a little bit more blue into that background. And there we're done. And there you go, finished image again, slightly cropped so you can see the detail. As you can see, and I mentioned, I did add some iridescent Winsor & Newton medium to the wings to give it that real shine, which you can see particularly there on the right hand wing. But you can see mounted on a card, it looked quite nice with a thin black border, and the colours really stood out, all the different blues and purples and hints of different colour. Hopefully people found that useful, bit of a close-up colouring. But if you like that, please give me a thumbs up, like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you in a future video.